Hey man, is your mic on?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Your mic on? I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, we good?
Oh yeah, we hot. We live.
All right. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, now. All right. We want to welcome everybody back to the King and I Life podcast. I
Welcome,
am your
back.
host,
Welcome back.
Son Soul Lex, and this is my co-host.
So touch of the poet in the house.
Yes, yes. Today we have a very special guest for you all. We've been telling you guys we have some big things in the works for you guys, and this is definitely one of the biggest things we have going on. So
No,
today we have Dr. Kevin King, who is actually running for the Prime Minister position of the Bahamas for the 2022 election.
wait a minute.
So
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know you jumping before you putting the cart before the horse. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and your preferred podcast platform because the brothers are worldwide. Um, and as Sun Soul Lex would like to tell everybody, email us at KINGANDEYE369 at gmail.com for your feedback, questions, and suggestions. Now, I will step back and let you get back into your big intro.
well, again, thank you. Thank you, my brother. Again, we have Dr. Kevin King, who is running for the Prime Minister position of the Bahamas in the election year of 2022. So, again, we want to thank you for coming on, sir. This is really an honor for us to have you on.
Good evening, gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to grace your presence today, and also good evening to your listening audience, wherever they are on this beautiful earth that God has so graciously allowed us to live on for the time that we're here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Dr. King, today we're going to kind of do our regular interview a little bit different, sir, because we know that you wear a man of many hats, as they say. So, the first part of it, we want to know who is Dr. King or who is Kevin King. And then the second part, we're going to introduce Dr. King. And then the third part will be uh, Dr. King, who's running for the prime minister position. We want to give everybody a chance to know you on those three different levels, sir. So, everybody, please just bear with us, and we're going to try to get these questions in the best we can. And please stay tuned because we are really dealing with someone who's full of knowledge. And I definitely think he has a big role in this world to play. So just bear with us. But with that being said, part one, uh, who is Kevin King? Please talk to us about your childhood, where you were born, lessons your parents and family implemented on you, and your influences growing up, sir.
Okay. I'm going to lay a foundation for you, and maybe even some in my country has not heard before. During my mom's pregnancy, she was in Manhattan, New York, really, up in Manhattan to my uncle, Ben King. And she was, I think it was December 28th, just after Christmas. She decided to return back to the Bahamas because it was rather cold. And she didn't have anyone up there with her, only Uncle Ben. And when she came home, I was born on January 1st, just 3 days later. So I missed being an American citizen by 3 days.
Oh man.
Wow.
and and that has a significance.
Okay, I want to hear that.
It does. Okay, and so I was born in Nassau, Bahamas. Um, I've had a very humbling childhood. We grew up in a village. It's called Adelaide Village, which is one of the oldest settlements in Nassau, in the Bahamas. I grew up with a grandmother who was very firm, very, we consider her the mayor of that particular village called Adelaide Village. And it's there I got the foundation of the man that I am today. Um, we grew up in the colonial era, so we all spoke basically the Queen's English,
Hmm.
and we were British subjects at the time, and all was not bad, you know, very disciplined, very cultured. Um, there was some issues of racial prejudice and what have you, but nonetheless, for the most part, it was that era. But if you applied yourself, in spite of all the challenges that you had, you would succeed. And in that, the Bahamas, we had a very high level of educational learning. Um, we were very brilliant children at the time, um, being under the British system. So, though we look at the dark side, um, there were some bright sides because, as you know, positive and negative, they grow together. They can't function without one another.
True.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
Even in your car, your red cannot work by itself, neither can your black. But there's something called the alternator that makes both of them go. You know?
Yes, sir. So true.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So the wheat and the tares, they must grow together in order to have a balance. So we had balance, and I grew up, left Nassau at a very early age, and we relocated to Grand Bahama, which was our second largest island and our second most populated and economic viable island at the time, where it was even more difficult because Grand Bahama was type kind of a segregated island where we have a city called Freeport, which was designed by the late Wallace Groves, but it was not designed for Bahamians. The city was designed for foreigners, for the elites, and we were to be their subjects, to be their servants. And up until today, unfortunately, still the case somewhat.
Yes, sir.
High school, elementary school, I excelled. I was a, they considered me a brilliant young man, likely to succeed. And I excelled in sports, all activities, whether it be games, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, tennis, squash. I excelled in all, and I'm still good at them today. Still at 62 years of age, I'm still still good today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can go on the court and hit 10 straight, you know, without missing, you know. Um, but my life has been very colorful. Believe it or not, during high school, one of my desires was to join the U.S. Armed Services.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm from a family of law enforcement officers in the Bahamas. Most of my cousins' relatives have been commissioners of police. Um, Also, in our defense force, we're it's in our DNA.
Yes,
But
sir.
when I graduated high school and left and went to the U.S., I would say that I got my boots. You know what that means.
Yeah. I don't know what that
I
means. I
got,
don't know what that means.
yeah, I I scored one of the highest tests on the ASVAB test
Mhm.
to join the U.S. Army, and I went down to what they term as MEPS
Yeah.
down in South Dade, and I got my boots. But through some issues where I was not a citizen at the time or resident, I was not able to join. I didn't know that prior to going. I just thought it come and join the army. Everybody could go.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
You know, I didn't know how things went there. But over the years since I was there, the U.S. Marines kept coming, kept coming, kept coming, but I never engaged.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a significance to that as well. Um, but during my stay in the U.S., I married to a U.S. citizen. I was gainfully employed in most sectors in the U.S. Store managers everywhere I went, basically on Kinney shoes. Went into the food industry, Denny's, Checkers, Little Caesars. Um, there isn't anything that I didn't do, from selling cars to dictionaries to I did it all. I did
Mm.
it all. I was considered one of the premier food managers in the state of Florida for many years, highly recruited. But there's still something missing. Life is not fulfilled, and the urge and the desire to go back home is very telling on me. Traveled the entire U.S. from East Coast to West Coast, lived in San Francisco, lived in other places on the East Coast, but nothing quenched that desire, you know.
Yes, sir.
And eventually I started to come home every now and then. And whenever things went bad, I know I could always go back. So um, sometimes you had to reset, reboot, refocus, but you never quit, never
Right.
give up.
True. True.
Um, so I find myself in a conundrum as to what I really wanted to do with my life. And until it became clear, and that is when things started to change. I went back to the US, went into medical school, was excelling very well. Concord College in Florida. And I thought I would be a brain surgeon. That's where I was working towards. And my professor said, no, there's something else about you. We think you should be a forensic scientist. You show signs of that. So we had to work at Miami-Dade morgue. Um, I was fascinated by cadavers and, you know, inside the body when the other students were falling out. See, that is real. Remember that show? I think it was Mayberry, one of those doctor shows that when they do an autopsy, everyone is just be falling out, But
Mhm.
I embraced it. The formaldehyde was okay with me. I didn't react adversely, and my professors were impressed with that. But still, that wasn't it. Went out to California, thought I would actually begin at Berkeley. It didn't happen. Um, in my early years, I was an actor. I danced during the disco years of Saturday Night Fever and all of that. I did television commercials. My first commercial was Welch's grape juice.
Oh, wow.
I could recall now they're giving me the glass, and when you're holding up the product, you have to hold it to the face. And I took a
Mhm.
sip and says, "Welch's grape juice, it's delicious." That was my first. That was my first commercial. I did a lot. I can't complain. I have no regrets. I did very well for myself as a bachelor,
Mm.
and so that was my childhood. I was well traveled. My mom was employed at all of the major airlines. From I knew myself,
Mhm.
Eastern Airlines, Pan Am, BOAC. So we always traveled the world. Before I was probably 12, there's hardly a place I had not been,
Oh, wow.
and that continues today. And my family continuously traveling the world. And I think that exposed me to a lot. And that caused me to study more about world history. I became a seeker of knowledge. At age 10, I was probably more advanced, far more advanced than the average 10-year-old. The books that I was reading, the average 10-year-old would not be reading. Um, so at this stage in my life now, I don't make any apologies for who I am. Many years ago, I would not be saying the things that I'm saying about myself today. given the fact that, I'm a very humble individual. I don't seek any self-aggrandizement. And I basically didn't like to bear witness of myself on any platform, in any circumstance. But the office that I seek today, persons need to know who I am, and I must express how confident I am in myself, um, in order to be able to help others. To thine own self be true. So what persons may seem as arrogance or confidence, no. At that stage in my life now, if I don't say who I am, then no one will know.
Right.
So I'm very honest in that regard. I try my best to be very factual and to be very truthful in everything that I do. And I often say to persons at this stage in my life, if I have ever hurt anyone, knowingly or not knowingly, then I ask them to forgive me. And if anyone has hurt me, I certainly want you to know that I have forgiven you. I don't intend to keep anyone in prison, and I certainly wouldn't like, for to keep me anyone to keep me in prison.
Right.
So I just try to live life and laugh, and just have fun. We're only here for but a short time.
Yes, sir. You're
So
right about that.
okay, so I'm all yours.
All right.
All right. So you mentioned racism growing up, and assume that you meant in the Bahamas. With that said, what are some of the challenges that you faced when you were growing up as a youth and as a teenager?
Well, I know we didn't experience significant racism like we did in Florida. Because we traveled a lot, I've seen a lot of racism in Florida itself, in Miami, even at the hotels. Because we traveled to Miami every Christmas. We stayed at the Columbus hotel, then at the Paramount Hotel. There were times when you couldn't go in through the front door, so I understood what was happening in America during the time. Those were the Martin Luther King Jr. Time civil rights movement. But in Grand Bahama, our racism was not so much by slave owners, but it was colonial. In fact, that in the Bahamas you couldn't work in certain sectors. You had to be out of certain areas before sundown. Um, but it wasn't a type of a violent type of racism, because Bahamians are well tempered, well mannered. We have a well mannered culture. So there was not that type of racism where it brought protests and lots of strife, but it was more sometimes personal, it was more individual. Um, Maybe things, name calling, like calling children monkeys, or punishing them physically. But you know that just wasn't the right thing to do, but it was acceptable at that particular time.
Mhm.
Um, but having said that, the Bahamas, especially Grand Bahama or Freeport, was a melting pot, because we had citizens from all over the world living in Freeport. So Freeport was basically a predominantly expatriate type of a city from everywhere in the world. Imagine French Canadians, Europeans, everywhere, Germany, Switzerland, Uzbekistan, Russia, France, they were from everywhere. So that was a culture that also helped me to shape me into the person that I am today as well. Our high schools um, we were highly motivated, because high school then, it was difficult to pass exams, a very high standard in the British system. Education was everything. Um, we had a type of culture where your parents would always say manners would take you through the world, and education was paramount in every household, in every family. So we grew up very, very, very disciplined. Even though we spoke the Queen's English and we sang God Save the Queen, there were benefits to that. and even becoming an independent nation. And we were still somewhat under that system. But now, I would say before we move to the next topic, those old weapons cannot hold us any longer. We appreciate those times, but now we've grown up, we mature. Now it's time to move on to the new and the next and better Bahamas for Bahamians.
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed.
So, conversely, what were some of the most memorable, rewarding moments of your upbringing? Would you say?
Being my mother's boyfriend. and
I think
and
you're
my
very way off on that one.
and,
Okay, yeah, we
and,
don't need
and
some
yeah,
more on that one.
and my mother being my girlfriend. Um, that
Mhm.
is the relationship that really shaped and solidified my life. My mom is very, very dear to me. Um, I gleaned at her feet. You couldn't separate us. Um, she was everything to me. And watching her humility and being under her tutelage, those were defining moments that this man can truly say, I am a man, the man I am today is because of her. She was there for some of the most tragic moments of my life, even as far as having girlfriends are concerned. She was always there for me. And my siblings, whom I love dearly, we were very, very close. We had good relationships during those early years.
Mhm.
Relationships meant everything, especially to Bahamians, because the village grew up a child. Everyone knew everyone, and there was much respect um, in the early years in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. You dare not pass an elder and not say good morning or good afternoon. If you're passing a church as a male wearing a hat, you could not pass a church and the hat was still on your head. You had to reverence the church. You took your hat off. Men were not allowed to wear hats in a building. I mean, we had very strict rules. It could have been because of our slave masters and how they brought us up, but nonetheless, it was our culture. I'll give you an idea. You could not leave home, gentlemen, unless you were properly dressed and properly groomed.
Wow.
I can definitely appreciate that aspect of what you're saying because in America, that is one thing that kind of turns my stomach to a degree. I mean, you see these young men walking around just looking disheveled, I'll just say. So I can definitely appreciate that, in the Bahamas that y'all grew up with that instilled in y'all, that type of discipline, that type of uh, those manners and respect and stuff like that.
Yeah. When we went to school in the morning, we had to stand in line for inspection. Your fingernails were inspected, nails
What?
were inspected, they had to be properly brushed, your nails had to be cleaned and properly trimmed, your clothes had to be properly ironed, your teeth had to be cleaned, your hair properly groomed. Yeah, yeah. That's how we grew up. That's how it was. And you dare not disrespect your elders. You knew when it was time to speak, when it was time not to speak. You never involved yourself in adult conversation. If
Mm,
adults are speaking, you spoke when you were spoken to,
right.
or you get lost. You know,
Yes, sir.
you you dare not speak back at your parents. No, those things were not acceptable at all. But fast forward, we became very Americanized. America has been good for us, and she's been bad. We've adopted a lot of her behaviors, a lot of her culture, and you see a deterioration of the moral fiber of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas from when I grew up. And when America sneezes, we catch the cold. That's what we say in the Bahamas. So
Yes, sir.
um, we seek now to be a sovereign and independent nation that we could chart our own course, and our own direction, because somewhere during all of that, we lost our identity as to who we are as Bahamians. We are so many different people. We don't have an identity. Um, but we can understand some things are learned behavior, um, but you never quit. You never give up. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, a man can only ride your back if you're not standing up straight. So now it's time for the Bahamians to stand up straight now and ride on the backs of our ancestors who have toiled and shed many tears and lots of bloodshed for this diaspora. Um, and it's our time. It's our time. All of us as a black race, what you would term is of melanin skin. It is time to rise up now. You know, it's time.
Yes.
It's a tearful, it's a very painful, it's been a long journey, over 400 years of slavery. Um, but we're still in a state of mental slavery. The physical slavery is over. There's no doubt that. But the mental slavery is the toughest of them all. For one to believe in oneself and to believe that one can achieve no matter what one wants to do. But that is the brainwashing, the deprogramming. It still exists today throughout the entire diaspora. So somehow we all have to work together to realize that we are kings, we are queens, always were. We are royalty, and not just Americans, Bahamians, Haitians, all of us. That's our faith. That's who we are, and it's good for a lot of us now that are trying to re-enlighten our brothers and our sisters as to who they are and where they're from. And I'm just happy to be in a position that I would probably be able to make that happen on a national and a governmental level. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so before I ask the next question, I want to ask you, because you said, the American influence has bleeded into the Bahamas. When we sneeze, you catch the cold. Over the last 20 years, have you seen the Bahamas attempt to go back to before America sneezing, you caught the cold, or do you see the citizenship of the Bahamas more adopting American ways, as you would think?
Yeah, the adaptation of American life has it's gripping the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We can't seem to break it. Our men, our women, our children, we are totally enthralled by America, whether it be sports, whether it be entertainment, whether it be clothing. Um, all aspects of American life has dominated the Bahamian life and the Bahamian psyche.
Mm.
Our language, behavior, um, our desire for materialism. This is the fastest deterioration in modern times.
Mm.
We don't blame America for that. That blame mostly lays at the leadership of our country over many, many years. Um, because the Bahamas is always looked on as one of the best ran black governed countries in the world. Unfortunately, we had those leaders um, that sought to destroy the foundations that were laid earlier for known as that civilization that were very excellent and we excelled. So we are deteriorating at a very, very fast rate. And the hemorrhaging hasn't stopped yet. And that's the sad thing about the Bahamas. But I must give credit to the citizens of the Bahamas who have persevered through it all. And I always say we're shattered, but we're not broken. We're wounded, but time will heal. And there is no doubt that we will rise again like a phoenix from the ashes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So before I jump into the next question, we got a lot of people following us with this conversation with Dr. Kevin King, um, who is running for Prime Minister of Bahamas. Um, Please ask your questions in the comments, and we'll try to get them in where we can. Um, so you mentioned that you traveled, a lot around the world. Uh, Me and Son Solex, being military brats, we've traveled around the world too. Um, where where have you traveled, and when has most of your travel occurred? Did it occur as a youth, or more as an adult?
Both, both. Um, as a youth, because my mom worked at the airlines, wherever she took us, we would go. Um, Most of our traveling in our youth was throughout the U.S. and like France. It's outside of the U.S. would be some areas in Europe. But not until I became an adult, actually, and got into medical school, that I started going farther places. Like Bangkok and the Philippines and South Asia and East Asia, India, and those areas. But that was on a trek to learn,
All
you
right.
know, um, and that's where a lot of my Eastern experience came in, sitting at the feet of uh, Dalai Lama from Italy,
Mm,
because I've been a seeker of knowledge. So I'm living with the monks in Tibet. Um, Even after going to school and college in Jamaica for quite some time, staying in the mountains with the Rastafarians and learning what true Rastafarianism is, as opposed to persons just saying that they're Rastas, but having the opportunity to actually live with them and fellowship with them and get a full understanding of what their struggles were. Those were in the times of Bob Marley's life early, where he was still a dominant force.
Hmm.
Um, Germany, France, South America, Ecuador, Quito, those, it's, and one thing I'd like to say, everywhere that you go in the world, this race, we call this black race, has left its mark. We are everywhere. We are not just in Africa. We are everywhere. If you go to South America, you will see the same building structures as you do in Egypt, you know, or in Alexandria, or in Syria. And a lot of these names have changed, but these are the ancient cities that were there from the beginning of time. I've sat at the feet of professors from Persia, which is Iran,
hmm
brilliant minds. Look, I can look, because of our prejudices, because of our, I would even term it brainwashing, especially in the West.
Hmm.
We don't understand the brilliance of those that are in the East. That's our own people.
Right. I can agree with that.
Okay. This notion of divide and conquer is still prevalent today from the days of Pharaoh. This is not something new. Pharaoh kept the Jews separated when he felt that they were getting together. He realized that once they got together and unite, he would be in trouble. So he always kept them apart, kept them divided. There's nothing new under the sun. All of these were systems from the beginning of time. But when you look at technology, technology basically hails from places like Malaysia, Romania, Pakistan, Iran. That's where all the brilliance, I mean, the physicists, the astrophysicists, um, the chemists. Uh, and when you look inside of America, you'll see them there.
Yes, you will.
You will see them there. Okay. And these are our people. We are all the same. So, me knowing from a young child my history, and I sought to acclimate myself to learn actually who I am and where I'm from. And I have these friends and resources on every continent. I've been on just about every continent except the Antarctica. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. And the Antarctica, what most people don't realize, is a very secret place in Antarctica where only the world leaders go. And that's for a specific reason. You're not invited there, but I'll digress from that. That's for a talk for another day.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's
So, with that being said, Dr. King, we're going to switch into the second part of this interview, which is
Yes.
talking about your love for health and fitness and um, all the things that go along with that. So, what motivated you to follow alternative medicine and natural healing as opposed to traditional medicine? And what degrees and or training have you received in that field, sir?
Listen, for me, was a divine call. Um, let's see, I got out of medical school in 1990 and 91, I think, 91. And I was working at Denny's in Oakland Park Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And a young lady bought a bottle of a herbal supplement to me. The name was trichromaline. And a pamphlet that she had was lose weight and feel great. And I guess she was just, I guess she was just trying to sell a product. You know, I don't know that I was really overweight. I may have had a few extra pounds on me, but
Uh-huh.
I was the manager of the restaurant, and I know, and you know, in the U.S. you have on your doors no solicitation. You know, you can't come and
right.
solicit. So I guess she gathered that I was the manager because of my activities in the restaurant. And I engaged her and I sat down and I spoke to her and she said, just try it. And I tried it, gave it to my wife, and that started a whole new world that opened up to me with just that one bottle. And that's how the Yahweh Elohim did it. It only started with just a grain, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I went back home and I started doing seminars with a physician there. And I went home one day and I sat down and heard this voice that I want you to establish natural medicine in the Bahamas. And it wasn't a foreign voice to me because from a child I had a very good relationship with my creator. And I know his voice and he knows. And once again, sometimes you'll always hear me say, I make no apologies for it.
Right.
I know who I am. But you hear his voice, whether or not you don't believe that there is a God, that is position. But as for Kevin King, I know that there is a God, and I know that he hears me, and I hear him. Okay, so when he said to me, I want you to establish natural medicine in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, I had to answer. And I said, yes, I will. And that started, even though my family did not time. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
understand that because natural medicine was not a popular thing anywhere in the world at that time, not even in America. Okay.
Right.
America was just starting to come into natural medicine, into dietary supplements. So that was a very difficult time. A lot of physicians of alternative medicine were being persecuted. There were being stores were being broken into. I mean, by FDA, and shutting down and coming with guns blazing, and a lot of suppression of natural medicine. I mean, it was some serious things were going on in natural medicine at the time. But he just steered me in the right direction, and that doors opened up. That person started contacting me from around the world, and that started my trek of traveling to going to the best. The best at that time was in Colombo, Sri Lanka, the Open International University for Complementary Medicine. It is the premier university for natural medicine in the world. Everyone who is anyone alternative medicine went through that university. So it was almost like you've been in a whole new world. Our internship is at the largest hospital in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So we had a university hospital, a teaching hospital. So what you saw there, believe me, in the West, you wouldn't see the types of diseases and the type of cases. Over there, you got everything.
Right.
And and causes we travel to Philippines to study, Hong Kong to study, Canada. So wherever there was a university or a college of natural medicine that offered a specific course or a specific system, um, I went there because I always wanted to be the best. And because of that, in 2005, I was um, I was elected the chairman of the World Organization of Natural Medicine. Okay, so I was
Wow.
responsible for natural medicine, the entire world.
Mm.
You know, so anything that happened in natural medicine, I knew. Um, I've lectured, visited all major universities. I've had a with from Georgetown to Wayne State, University of Montreal, all of them. Um, I can say that I have accomplished quite a deal in alternative medicine. There isn't anything that I have not done. I have achieved the highest level that you can possibly go as a professor for alternative medicine. Um, I'm just humbled, honored that that gift was given to me, and that I was able to impact so many lives throughout the entire world. People came from all over the world to see me. Even though in their own country they could have stayed and got treatment, but when they heard about this Bahamian, this guy in the Bahamas, that people traveled to from England, people traveled from Switzerland, from Germany, from Russia, from China, they all still came to see me.
Wow.
I'm on many advisory boards, scientific boards. I made it my business to know. The only place I did not actively practice was the US because America has so many different regulations in different states. America is not a cohesive country, you know. Florida, what you can do in Florida, you can't do in Atlanta. What you can do in Atlanta, you can't do in New York,
Mhm.
you know. But I still had colleagues and affiliates from all over. I've lectured, I've taught at seminars, I have done it all. I have emptied myself in the field of natural medicine. I've been knighted twice for my accomplishments in natural medicine. Um, I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Complementary Medicine Practitioners. That's one of the highest honors that you could possibly receive. I've everything from the common cold to cancer. There isn't anything I have not done. So in that regard, I he has given me the grace now to walk away from that, as it were, and now
Yes,
walk
sir.
into a higher echelon of, I would still call it natural medicine, because if you're doing things the right way, there are only two laws really in this world. There's universal law and there's natural law. And if you break them, you suffer the consequences. If you keep them, you reap the benefits. We have other laws that govern us, like the laws of cause and effect, but the laws that God has instituted are natural and universal. So even how you govern, you have to adhere to those two laws. Let there be no doubt that as a government, if you don't follow certain principles, your country will suffer, your country will mourn. So he's given me the basic fundamental tenets of what a kingdom government should be like. And that's why we are the KGM. We are the Kingdom Government Movement, known as the KGM. This is something that we've been searching for since Adam lost his way at the garden, and man has been searching for this way of life that our Dr. Miles from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas went throughout the entire world preaching about the kingdom. And here it is, one of his men, one of his proteges have been called to manifest the kingdom in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And the world is watching. Let there be no doubt. The world is watching.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So, how long have you been practicing natural medicine and healing, and are you still practicing today?
I'm still practicing almost 3 decades now.
Wow.
Almost 3 decades. Almost. You can say I started in 1991. Um, and now it's what, 2021. So a couple years, give or
Yeah,
take a few years. Yeah,
couple years here and
Just a little bit. So, with the rise of chronic illnesses,
Yeah.
in your professional opinion, what would you attribute them to?
Um, some myriad of things. I indicated several times that in the 30s and 40s, it was against the law to say that food caused diseases. A medical doctor would lose his license, be totally ostracized if he would come and say that eating a bowl of cereal or some preservative or some processed food caused you to get sick. It was against the law to say that. But now we know that food, we know that the environment, we know that stress, there's so many things that the human is bombarded with on a daily basis now. Even medicines. So everything that man has created that's counterfeit to natural law is what's causing his ailments today. Okay, I indicated before, if you can only have a counterfeit $100 bill if there's an original $100 bill. Okay, it was never the creator's intent for us to get sick, and that's why he created certain things for us to eat as prevention. Okay, and because we moved away from that diet, then we're reaping the consequences of straying away from that particular system. And all these are systems: self gratification, the microwave society, the taste, things that taste good, which is really not good for you. We want things now. We don't want to wait. When it took a chicken 3 to 4 months sometimes before it's ready to eat, we want it now. So you get it the same
Yeah,
almost the next day, you know.
that is true.
So you're paying the price for all of those things. So with the modern technology and advances, we're more of a detriment to ourselves, to the extent to which now we have been able to genetically modify food. Um, all of this is dangerous stuff, but that's how the world is today. You don't have much of a choice in certain instances, because we believe that we are gods and we want to control each other. I'm going to say something to you, kind gentlemen, that if you don't receive anything that this young man says to you this evening, the Creator never, not once, did he say that man ought to control man or man ought to take dominion over man. He gave us dominion over the earth, not over each other. And that is the cause for problems today. We seek to dominate and to control each other, and that is not from him.
Yes, sir.
He
I
did not
totally
give
agree with
us
that.
he did not give us control over any females. He did not give females any control over us. But we seek, because of our own selfish desires, we seek to circumvent his natural laws and universal laws, and we're suffering the consequences. And that's all it is, really.
So, with that being said, do you think that our egos maybe are the direct source to a lot of the destruction that we cause as human beings?
Well, you can call it egos, but one thing that he actually did is he gave us a free will. And that is what it is. He gave us a free will, free choice, but with consequences. You know, he has two wills. One is his permissive will, and one is his divine will. There's nothing that goes on that he does not know. You don't surprise him. He allows things to happen, you know, and sometimes he allows you to buck your toe. You know?
Yes, sir. That is true.
Um, so
Yeah.
we have some other questions on this topic, but we have a comment from one of our listeners out there, and the question is, when did you decide to go into politics and decide to run for prime minister, and what are the things that you want to change and implement?
Okay. Um, Going into politics was never an ambition of mine. Even though I was schooled in it, I grew up in it, was bred in it. I accepted the fact that I had knowledge of how my country is being ran. I had knowledge of how the world functions. Um, I know probably more about world affairs during a young age than most because it was my desire to do that. I wanted to know how New Zealand functioned, how Switzerland functioned. I wanted to know how governments ran. And one day in 2016, in my room, I was sitting on the bed listening to one of our most popular drive home talk shows, and they were discussing what changes the Bahamian citizen needed in order to excel and to feel like they're part of their own country. Because we were in such a state of deprivation. And that same voice that I spoke to you about when I was home, that spoke to me about natural medicine, he said, call into that show and tell them the only way the Bahamian can have financial equality and true sovereignty and independence is to change the system. And once I did that, that started the track to politics.
Okay.
Just that. It's always a simple little thing, you know,
Yes,
no,
sir. It is.
no,
A lot of cases, it's
no,
something really simple.
yeah, no big thing. And I just went out to some meetings and one thing led to another. And I got my feet wet in that I joined two organizations that I got to see some of the inner workings of how these things come together. I didn't like it very much. Saw a lot of egos, a lot of persons jockeying for position, and I saw this I term it as an evil that is called democracy.
Mm, mm.
Okay, that has stagnated growth because everyone has a say. So if you can't accept the vision of a leader and join an organization that has a vision, you feel that I have to say something that doesn't go my way, then nothing is going to happen. It's like you playing a game of basketball. You brought the ball to the court. It's your ball, you know, and someone fouls you and you call foul. Nobody believes that they fouled you and you get upset and you decide you're going to take your ball home. So, you know, there's no ball to play with, you know. In the Bahamas, we call it, we had a term, we call it game come. You know, so that means I'm not getting my foul, y'all ain't playing no ball, you know. So I've watched good organizations crumble because everyone feels that if you don't adopt what I say, then nothing is going to happen. And I said to both these organizations, I cannot handle dissension, egos, argument, confusion. If I see that, I'm gone. And so said, so done. I left, and but he didn't leave. He had called me to something that I didn't know about. So it was the Elohim alone that kept me in a type of a, you could call it a bubble, to say when the right opportunity availed itself, then this is what I want you to do. So here I am. Um, Not an ambition of mine to be Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, not an ambition at this stage in my life to seek to lead this country at its worst time in our history, not only the world, but the Bahamas. We've had a void in leadership for so many years. There's been a cry for good leadership in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Um, we as Christians, whether they want to accept Christianity or not, there's so many, connotations to these things today. But let's just say, for
Yes,
instance,
yes, yes.
um, no doubt, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When they do not, the people mourn. So something is happening because the world is mourning.
Mm-hmm.
That it is.
The world is mourning. There's before COVID-19, gentlemen, there was so much unrest throughout the entire world. There were protests all over the globe in every country. People were tired. They were tired of being economically depressed and oppressed. And COVID came and shut all of that protesting down.
It
Most
did.
of it, at least.
It really did. For the most part, it definitely did that.
Yeah. So what I seek to do, I've been given a mandate to bring true freedom, economic freedom, independence, and sovereignty to the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It is the purpose for which I was born. I do not apologize for it. I do not run away from it. I embrace it. I was being prepared for this from a child of 8 years old.
Mm,
So I know what I've been predestined to do, and I know what my purpose in life is.
mm,
He has given
Right.
me the grace to walk away from natural medicine, something that I loved and it just totally consumed me. He has given me the grace to walk away from that slowly and given me another love, which is a love for country beyond what I could ever imagine. I love my country. I'm willing to give my life for it.
mm.
That is definitely very noble, sir. I mean, there are plenty of politicians in the world and people in the world who want to do the right thing, but then they find themselves in those positions where I think I'll just give an example with President Obama. Um, in my opinion, I think that there are a whole lot of things he wanted to do and implement to actually help uh, the people of this country. But because there was so much bickering back and forth between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, a lot of the things I feel he wanted to do, they just didn't happen. Because when you have two parties arguing back and forth and trying to see who has the biggest stick, as they say, then you can't get a whole lot of things done. But I definitely feel that when people like yourself again have these goals in mind and these visions in mind of really wanting to make a change uh, in the world, not only within your country but within the world, I think that the necessary people will reveal themselves, as they say. I don't think that the vision that you've been given is just given to you. Everything and everyone that needs to fall in line in order to help you obtain this vision, they will reveal themselves.
Yes, see, when you have such a dominant organization in this two-party political system, whether it be in America or anywhere else, it becomes a game to them. Okay, the Democrats and Republicans, they play psychological games on the citizens of America. There's no difference between the two. It's only probably who would get benefits from this more and that more. They all love one another, drink together, happy, sing, and we fight. Same thing as in the Bahamas. This two-party system has been entrenched in our constitution to keep these two organizations in until perpetuity. It's what we term is a duopoly of indefinite power. Winner takes all. The good thing about America is that it does have separation of powers. Now, mind you, in America today, you can be the hero and tomorrow the goat. So don't play around. They will enforce the law. You can be at the top of the pinnacle today and tomorrow you're going to come crashing down. Okay? In the Bahamas, that doesn't happen. We are not a country, we are a country of laws, but we are a country that does not enforce our laws. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what we seek, when you speak of those gentlemen, they are engrossed in systems. The world is governed by systems. Okay? And if we don't change some of these systems, the same thing that we're faced with now will continue to perpetuate. So my government, the KGM, we seek to change the governing system in the Bahamas that has kept our people oppressed and deprivated, that has kept us as subjects, that we could not realize our full potential and our growth. And what has happened is our brothers and sisters have become the system for their own benefits, for their own friends. We say in the Bahamas is family, friends, and lovers. You know, so the majority and the masses of the people, they suffer because they've created a system of dependency. And I'll tell you how that is. Let me give an example. Nowhere else on earth, nowhere on earth does the citizenry not engage and not assist a political organization except the Bahamas. The system in the Bahamas is that they expect a political organization to give to them. It's not like you in America who would donate to a political organization.
Mm-hmm.
In the Bahamas, we don't donate. We expect them to give us. We want a refrigerator. We want a stove. We want our lights paid. To campaign, you got to give me a couple $100,000. You got to give me some money so I could go there and campaign for you. Our politicians created that system of dependency that is nowhere else on this earth. So what they have done is they have a special interest that supports both of the major political organizations. So no other entity can come and challenge them, because you have those financial entities support both. So it doesn't matter to them who wins. It doesn't matter. You see. So we have a term in the Bahamas that says the money bag man. So during the election cycle, these two major political parties walked around with a bag of money and they just give and they give and they give. And that is how our campaign are done in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Nowhere else in the world does it happen. Nowhere else on earth. But we seek to change that system. And we seek to change that mindset of dependency on our people. And that is the sad time in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because the electoral process is the only time that they have any say in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Once elections are over, they have no say. We go into a prime ministerial dictatorship until the next 5 years. And the cycle repeats itself over and over again.
Right.
So he has mandated me to introduce a righteous kingdom system that will replace this Westminster system along with all of its instruments, and to set up a new system that the Bahamian citizen will become owners and possessors of their own land. And we will introduce a new conceptualization of democracy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, before we get too far away, with this current pandemic that the world is facing right now, there are a lot of criticisms, mainly in minority communities, about taking the vaccine. Talk to us about your thoughts on that. I'll give a few examples. What are some of your recommendations for people to stay healthy? Do you feel like people overall are taking the virus seriously? Uh, do you feel natural slash alternative medicines are a safer approach globally?
Let me say this. COVID-19 has not just appeared. And when I say COVID-19, I'm not talking about the virus itself. I'm talking about the conclusion of the matter. What Hillary Clinton was trying to do in the 70s when she was given the health portfolio by President Bill Clinton is what they're trying to do now. Put chips in the vaccines in order to track you. They succeeded only to do it in children, because the law did not pass in Congress for adults with Hillary Clinton's new health care program. But this is only disguised, okay? What you have is medical martial law. The only way you can control a people is put them in fear of their lives. And this is the world system. And this is how they seek to control. Will I say that COVID-19 is not a real virus? Of course it is. To the extent to which they say it is, no, it's not. And that's why there's such a diversity in the medical community about COVID-19. But because a lot of governments have sworn or they've signed on to certain treaties that they have to adhere to, that's why all governments are doing the exact same thing. Never done in the history of the world before. COVID-19 is not the worst pandemic that has hit mankind.
No, it's not.
The interesting thing is, we are the highest educated populace, supposedly, in the history of the world. The pandemics of past times did not have the brains that it has today, the scientists, the doctors, the technology. It didn't have it. But we have it. And we go in a state of mass hysteria and panic. They have never been able to solve any problem with a man-made vaccine, not one. It has never solved a problem, never eradicated any disease known to man, not even polio. And now you're going to come up with a vaccine in a few months, in a year, to say he's going to cure. They've got to be kidding. It's not true. A lot of these vaccines is a placebo. It's not a real vaccine. There's no cure in there. You can't cure a virus. You can't even cure the common cold. How are you going to cure a virus that's killing everybody? What are you talking about, man? Come on. You can't cure a simple influenza. You can't cure a headache. It's going to come back. You know, these things are prevalent with us. We are made up of trillions of cells and bacterium and virum. It's how we live. It's a part of us. It's a part of our DNA. You know, even the trees have an immune system. People don't know that.
That is true. That is true. That is true.
So
So,
this COVID-19. Look, let me say this. Many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's God's will that prevails. And this too shall pass. You will remember me telling you this day, March 10th. This too shall pass. Who is man that you are mindful of him? You perish for season and vanisheth away. This is his world. He's created this, not them. I'm sure nothing has caught him by surprise. So let's see how long it goes on. And when he gets tired, he'll just breathe breath from his nostrils and it's all gone. You know. So I don't get concerned about it. Not at all. But do we have natural remedies for COVID-19? Oh yes, definitely. Scientifically proven, clinically tested. Um, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, I will be unveiling something very, very soon. In the Bahamas, can be COVID-19 free. There's a lot of things that you cannot say because we have emergency powers enacted. So you let them do what they do. But the Bahamian, we don't really believe in vaccines. We don't want the vaccination. Some will take it, but the majority won't. But we will have an alternative to the vaccines. And everything is happening right on time. Because when the KGM becomes the government in 2022, we have a master plan that this country will be COVID free. Everyone will want to come here. And those who come here, they will be COVID free when they come. We have a solution, a plan that virus will not be able to exist in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Wow. I know
all right.
everybody's looking forward to that now. Just hit me up when you got that, because I'm coming there.
We have it.
So, with all that you just said right there about, COVID, and, anybody who knows a little something about viruses know that you cannot kill a virus. Especially when, we have viruses that live inside of us. They just don't overtake our body because it's such a balanced machine.
Mhm.
Given all that you said and all that we all know, how would you rate the current prime minister's handling of this situation, and what would have been your approach to mitigate the effects, the outcry, the misinformation, and the panic?
What I can honestly say is the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas had to act on what was before him.
Okay.
Okay. With whatever knowledge he has garnered over the years, and whatever knowledge that was presented to him from the World Health Organization, of which he is Bahamas is signed on to, he had to act within that system.
Okay.
Okay. I therefore cannot question the Prime Minister and what he did at the early stages.
Mm-hmm.
What I can do, therefore, is as time goes on, you can see the lack of, for a better word, the handling of the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, in that he sought no other method other than that which was presented to him. And even though there was a cry throughout the entire world that you can try this, you can try that, the Bahamas was just locked down with a one tunnel vision. This is it. This is what we have to do, flatten the curve. And there are other countries that had a very successful run with COVID-19 because they didn't follow that particular world system plan to the letter.
Right.
You have to decide what is best for your people. Okay. Even when the World Health Organization finally came out and said lockdowns do not work, you're still locking people down. This is the same entity that you listen to, but yet still you don't adhere to what they're saying now. When they were saying wearing a mask does not prevent the spread of the virus, and then masks are mandated. They just kept switching back and forth, and the excuse was the virus is evolving. We're learning more things about it now. It's mutating. It's like doctors who prescribe antibiotics for a common cold.
Mm.
Antibiotics has nothing to do with the cold. Antibiotics were designed for bacterial infection. But you get a common cold, yeah, take some amoxicillin, take some augmentin. So we've become antibiotic resistant. So when
Yeah.
you really need it, it has no effect on you whatsoever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I always say, in the Bahamas especially, you can challenge the prime minister, you can challenge your pastor, you can challenge anyone, but you dare not challenge your physician. He is God.
Mm.
Because you believe that he has your life in his hand, and it is not so. It ought not to be like that, and that is what the world seek to use. They perpetuate that fear, and then they instituted medical martial law, and that's how they were able to control um, on this massive scale today. But there's a hidden agenda. Of course, we all know that. We're intelligent people. We
Yes,
know
we
it's
know
more
there's
than
always
that.
a legend out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or how I would have done it differently. Let me answer that.
Yes, sir.
Those who were symptomatic, we would treat. Those who are not, we would have used prevention, whether it be high doses of vitamin C, vitamin D, herbal medicines, or whatever. We would have protected those that were not ill. We would have compartmentalized the section of our community that was most vulnerable. And we would still treat them even if they didn't have symptoms of COVID-19. But I would not have punished those that were healthy and keep them locked down. It made no sense. Out of just like how you go out and you service, you go out and you give care packages and foods out of used our military, our law enforcement to give out medicines that would prevent
Mm.
COVID-19, that would boost your immune system. That would have been the plan, and have that really sectioned out incrementally and strategically throughout the entire country. That would have been more cost effective than to lock down the entire country and put this amount of suffering on such a small nation.
Yeah,
Yes,
something
sir.
something like that would work in the Bahamas, but I guarantee you, if you had the military and law enforcement doing that in America, everybody would have been screaming martial law. Everybody would have been in a bigger uproar, and there's no telling what the outcome would have been if that would have been done in America.
Yeah, well, there's certain freedoms in America, but for instance, if the government wants to get something to every citizen in America, how would they do that?
Um, It's hard to say because personally, I think there's a lot of pacification in America. You would have to approach it delicately, as they say now, politically correct. Um, I think if it was more managed by the states, I think it would probably go over better as opposed to the federal government taking over something like that. Of course, the federal government would have to assist, but I think something like that would have to be more in the hands of the individual states in order for it to not look like, a perception of martial law.
Yeah, well, you have a different tier of government. You have federal, you have state, you have
Right.
local, you have city government, municipalities. But if it was mandated that for instance, right now, every citizen is mandated to wear a mask, whether or not a state says yes or a state says no, but the states do have rights now. And the
Right.
reason why this occurs is because America is not a country. America is a corporation.
It definitely is.
Okay, that's why they say corporate America. Okay, a lot of Americans don't know what their citizens are. Anyway, I leave that alone. That's another thing.
Yes, sir.
But see, in times of trouble, in times of trouble, they expect the federal government to be there for them.
Hmm.
Disaster, hurricanes, crisis, and the federal government comes in force with the National Guard or what have you. They like that. But when it's something that they don't want, that they say you're infringing on my constitutional rights, my
Hmm.
civil liberties, sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. When you give individuals so much freedom that they don't know what's good for them sometimes.
That's true. That is true.
That's just real life. You can do whatever you want to do. And that's why in America you have such anarchy, because everybody has a right to do anything that they want to do. The state can challenge the federal government. The city can challenge the state. The local municipality can challenge. There's just no continuity. So when you don't have continuity, you have anarchy and chaos.
Mm. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Right.
Okay. So I leave America alone. I'm concerned about Bahamas.
Stop picking on us.
We good. We good.
But we have the same issues, Bahamians we're very proud people, but we still believe in a God, and we still believe that God is supreme. Though you have a lot of persons in the Bahamas now that don't believe in the Christian Judeo system, and that's fine. And I just say that no matter where you go, there's only one God.
Mm.
The only difference is whether or not you believe that there's a God.
Right.
But if you believe there's a God, there's only one. Even if you are Muslim, there's still only one. Allah is God. Allah is Yahweh Elohim. Doesn't matter.
Mm.
Okay? Hashem, Hashem is still God. Dio is still God. It's still the same God. It's just what your doctrinal belief systems are and how you arrive at the point to say, this is the God that I serve.
Right.
But the diaspora, us, Black people, us, it is our time. We have suffered for a long time, and
Yes,
they're
we have.
rising up all over the world. And there's still a force out there to still try and keep us divided, because they've always feared when these Black people get together. You know? And that is one of the greatest nations on earth, was that little island called Haiti. They don't get their just due because people don't understand the history.
No, you definitely got to do your history on
Okay,
Haiti.
they don't know that the Constitution of Haiti is written by D. Eisenhower, the President of the United States, and they keep Haiti in check.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that part.
That's something for another day.
Yes, sir. So, with that being said, do you think anywhere now or in the future that you see the Bahamas moving away from the Westminster system?
That is our mandate. Yes, sir. It must. We must. Now, mind you, you don't have to. We don't intend to eliminate Westminster in its totality because Westminster have some good points. It's one of the oldest systems in the world. Westminster began in Rome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What Rome used to do when they invaded a territory, they first sent a governor and established their territory. And that's how Westminster is. They started out sending a governor to that region. And instead of them conquering a people, they colonized them. You know, it was a brainwashing. It was a system they implemented. You can only replace that system with another system. So it is our mandate to replace Westminster, at least aspects of Westminster, um, with a more um, with a more comprehensive system that will involve the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, where they can truly, for the first time, be able to govern themselves. Now, for those who do not know, the monarchy warned our politicians against accepting the Queen of England as head of state.
Really?
They looked ahead and said this will cause a problem for your country later on, that how an independent Bahamas could have the Queen of England as head of state. But that was done to appease the few.
Mm.
And now it's difficult getting out of that system. But God, only Him can do it. If we don't, we die.
Mm.
If we don't do it now, it'll be very difficult to get out of it.
Mm.
And now is the time. So I speak to the Bahamians throughout the diaspora of America and wherever your show is being, your podcast is being listened to. We need them because this is a fight for the soul of our nation. This election is unlike any other in the history of our country.
Yes, sir.
So my next question is, in comparison to many places in the world, societies as a whole are struggling. As it pertains to the Bahamas, what are your plans to address the issues as it pertains to healthcare, crime, financial stability, and literacy, the education system, and participation in government?
The Bahamas, with the KGM, Kingdom Government Movement, we have to introduce a transformative plan, which we have. And the system that we had in place was called Foreign Direct Investments, which is FDI, where an individual or a corporation may come to the Prime Minister and said, we want to build a mega hotel. We want to invest $500 million. So they've been given billions in concessions just to build that hotel and provide menial jobs. That is how the Bahamas has survived all these years. That has to change, and that will change in the KGM. So the Bahamians do not participate in any types of ownership, but their country is being sold out.
Mm.
So what we have done is we have partners. I have resources that I've garnered over the years that would assist in building a new and next Bahamas, that would blend their resources, that would lend their technologies and their expertise to help building a new Bahamas. For the KGM, the Bahamas is severely underpopulated. Okay, we have islands that can hold up to 15 million people. We have several islands that can hold 5, 10, 15 million people. So for a country that only has some 400,000 people, the system that we have now is not sustainable. We're about $11 billion in debt. We have no new income, no diversification of economy. Okay, no country used its own citizens to build its country. America is a country of immigrants. Um, Canada, a country of immigrants. Dubai, a country of immigrants. Asia, a country of immigrants. The UK, a country of immigrants. And that's how you build and grow your country, with laws that are enforced and creating a system that will have sustained growth economically and otherwise. Our system, our system is where the challenges lie in education, in healthcare. All of our systems are abject failures. And we seek to bring in new vision, a new mindset of educated Bahamians throughout the world to help us transform the Bahamas into a place that would benefit all Bahamians. So we seek to create a new Bahamian economy. We seek to take political interference out of the systems and let them run themselves. We seek to bring governance to the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas instead of a prime ministerial dictatorship. And I think that's what the Bahamian people want. We have a new electorate now. It's not the same dependent type of electorate that we had in our early years, where everybody just wants a handout. These young millennials, they want to be able to function. They want to work. They're intelligent. They're just so full of energy and innovative ideas, and they're just so creative, have so much ingenuity. And I want them to just open up, because we don't utilize our greatest resources in the Bahamas, which is our citizens, which is our own people.
Hmm.
But now it's time for a change.
So, with that being said, sir, what is your economic plan to empower the people and provide financial equality? Using these resources while taking into consideration the negative impact that could occur from other exploitations of the natural resources of the Bahamas. Um, we know that the Bahamas is very rich in natural resources, such as aragonite, which is worth billions by itself, salt, the soil, timber, oil, wetlands, fresh water sources, etc. So, how do you plan on using that to help the people and actually
Well,
um, not take away so much from the land that the land can't survive on its
yeah,
own? That's anymore.
yeah. Well, no country can just rely on its natural resources to sustain itself.
Right.
Um, we need a new economy, and that's why we have a skilled program called the KGM Career Initiatives Program, where we're providing paid training and education in almost every sector, so we can have a skilled force for all of the vital projects that the KGM is bringing into the country, in order for them to have new careers, new opportunities that has never been here before in manufacturing, in banking, in maritime. The entire economy will expand. Okay, natural resources, yes, is there, but we have to realign our natural resources. We put those numbers on it and say it's billions and billions of dollars. Yeah, true, maybe. But indeed, if it is, that would be gravy for the
Right. It,
citizens of the Bahamas. You understand?
Yes, sir.
You can't build a country of somebody that said they made $500 million from selling aragonite. And when you become the government, you're going to go and take that $500 million business they had, and you're going to sell aragonite and make $500 million. Come on, it doesn't make any sense. You
Right.
have to have partners. You have to have relationships. Um, you have some persons that have been mining aragonite in the Bahamas that they have billions and billions of tons stored in storage. They could say, "Look, we have enough to last us for a little while. We don't seek to do any business with you." So then, what are you going to do if you don't have an alternate plan? You're going to go back and do the same thing that all governments do: borrow from the IDB and the IMF and tax your people. You see, and that's where the whole system has to change. Um, we'll create a new economy and become a producing nation instead of a consumer nation. That is a fundamental issue in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. About 90 to 95% of all of our goods and services are imported. We import everything. So we don't feed ourselves. Our children, our kids, they don't invent anything. We're always buying. We live in Walmart, live in Target. We don't develop anything, and we have the talent here to do it. What we don't have is the funding. What we don't have is a government that has the vision to support its citizenry. There's always a reason why it cannot be done instead of let's see how we can do it. If you want to use Obama's slogan, yes, we can.
Right.
But I'll go beyond that and said, yes, we will. We can do it and we will do it. If the citizens of the Bahamas really want change, they want to see a whole new life where now, for instance, the partners that we are bringing into the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, they are not to be owners of any of the project's business. There will be Bahamians, the majority of Bahamians will own those projects, will own those manufacturing companies, will own those production companies, will own those agricultural systems. So they can really feel now that, hey, this is us. We can set up Silicon Valleys. We can set up our own tech hub owned by Bahamians. The concept that we had first is that we were looking for someone else, another person, to come in and solve our problems for us. We are mature now. We're not drinking milk anymore now. We're not on the breast any longer now. You understand? we have teeth. We can eat meat now. So it's just time. It's time to grow up and come off mommy's lap.
Yeah. Well, as we push on, I want to thank everyone that's with us. If you have questions, please put them out there for us to present to Mr. Kevin King. My next question, or thing to touch on, the Bahamas is a parliamentary constitutional monarchy headed by Queen Elizabeth II. In her role as Queen of the Bahamas, it is a multi-party dominated by the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement. Are the Bahamian people ready for a new political party? Is my first question.
I think so. Bahamians have been exchanging government since 2007. From 1967 to 1992, we had a stint where one government, the PL, Progressive Liberal Party, lasted some 25 years. And the citizens of the Bahamas decided we need a change. Mm-hmm. Even though a lot of external forces created that environment, but definitely Sir Lyndon was a man for his era. Okay. And ever since then, after 92 and 97, the citizens of the Bahamas have been exchanging between the two governments. And it's only in recent times, we can probably go to 2007, 2000, and 2012, that they're realizing that both of these organizations are the same. Mm-hmm. One coming in, one coming out, doing the same. Nothing is changing. The country is just deteriorating. Okay. So I think if they see a viable alternative, mm-hmm. a viable alternative to governance, they will make that change. If you remember me going back to the special interests, the difficulty is both of these organizations know that the finance country is locked down. It's only between those two. Only those two would get funded. Three major special interest groups that has the wherewithal to finance a political campaign. Okay, we call them the Eastern Road. Then we call the other ones behind the gate. Then we call them and then the other one we call them the numbers boys. Oh. So if you're not getting financing from those three, you could forget it. Okay.
Wow.
So, but this is a new day in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And when they asked Dr. Kevin King, well, who backs you? Who's your backing? Where your funding coming from? My answer is simply this: manna will fall from heaven.
Mm.
That's all I can tell you.
I hear that. I hear that. So, is the new part is the KGM intended to be a third party or a replacement for the two that are in place?
I don't consider the KGM a third party. When the KGM becomes the governor of the Bahamas, the two-party system will be dismantled.
Okay.
That is my mandate.
Hmm.
Never again will a two-party system dominate the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. From
Wow.
here on in, the Prime Minister will be elected just like your president is elected directly from the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, as opposed to being the leader of a political party. Okay? The Our Senate, which is a rubber stamp in the Bahamas, that's basically appointed by the Prime Minister and the opposition, they will be elected directly also, and they will be the premier legislature in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, thereby for the first time having separation of powers in the government of the Bahamas. Excuse me a second.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we got an exclusive right then.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, and also for the we will still have a bicameral system, okay? But you would have the judiciary that will be separate now, which is heavily politically influenced.
Hmm.
Law enforcement, which is heavily politically influenced, will have autonomy for the first time. Our defense force will be independent of all government interference as it is now. And all of these systems that the special interests have been controlling for all these years will come to an end. Nothing will happen overnight. Things will be phased in incrementally and strategically. For the first
Right.
time, we will have set dates for elections, which will be November 10th every year. You have until the end of January um, to determine whether or not, or to declare your desire to offer for Prime Minister to come of the Bahamas. Anyone can, male or female. So right now we have to have this big organization, like the KGM has to have 39 candidates in order to compete with the two. Everyone will have 39 candidates, and the majority wins. When we introduce a new government, that system will no longer be here. That will be totally dismantled. And I think the Bahamian people can accept that. I think especially the younger generation would love to have that.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay, so the next question under this, I can say for myself as an American citizen, you should get vote at 18. I probably didn't vote until my mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s. I will say that my first time voting was not for a presidential election. I know the importance of voting on every level. So my question to you is, how has the reception of the KGM been received by the Bahamian people? And is it a struggle to get people to participate in this whole movement or in politics, period, in the Bahamas?
The KGM, we're campaigning very unconventionally. What the Bahamian citizens have been accustomed to, we don't do.
Hmm.
One of our slogans is, "This is not politics as usual." Okay. We have been very intentional. We have been very strategic. We have been doing things very incrementally and systematically. And we are very relevant. What they have not seen yet is the physicality of what we call being on ground.
Hmm.
But we are putting a structure in place, the likes of which the Commonwealth of the Bahamas has never seen. And in that structure is that for the first time, an incoming government will have its own investment portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
That has never happened, not even in your country.
Right.
Okay. So what our system is that even though they bring a plethora of ideas every 5 years, they still wait to see when they become the government what revenue is in the public treasury in order for them to carry out their mandate. And the cry always is, we can't carry out our programs because there's no money. we're broke, okay? So
We hear that a
this
lot everywhere.
Definitely.
everywhere, so they go and they borrow and they tax, and the same cycle goes over and over and over again. So it is difficult, therefore, for the Bahamian citizens to grasp the enormity of what the KGM is bringing to the table, something which they have never, ever seen before. How could an incoming government have its own revenue to carry out its economic mandate? Okay. But the significance of this is because there's been no transparency and accountability in our governance for some 25 to 30 years, that will give us time to really dismantle that entire system that
Mm-hmm.
they've been working under to determine exactly what has been going on with the finances of this country for so many years. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's why whatever we do will not bring any hardship on the citizens of the Bahamas. We will not increase any government debt. We will not raise any taxes, but yet still the country will be growing leaps and bounds economically, the likes of which they've never seen before.
Interesting. So I got one more question under this before I pass it to my co-host.
Mhm.
And I think you mentioned that the Bahamas would become an independent republic. Now, given that, should it adopt its completely own governmental style, or continue with the Westminster system or parts of the Westminster system?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We will take the best of Westminster and the best of the Republican system, not a republic. See, there's a difference between a republic and your Republican system. See,
Right.
you can be a republic but still be under Westminster. Okay, being a republic is just removing the governor general and replacing him with your president, but the queen is still head of state because the queen still governs through the Westminster system. It is still
Mhm.
her system. You still have the mace, which is the royal authority in parliament, that when you enter the halls of parliament, you still have to bow to the mace.
Mm,
Okay. So every day you go in, you're bowing to this graven image. Parliament cannot convene unless the mace is present, which is carried by the Speaker of the House. Okay. So though we're not going to be a republic, we will still be a democratic system, a democratic parliamentary Republican system, but we're not going to be a republic like Ecuador or those places where there's just the president.
mm-hmm.
No, we will still have a prime minister, and
Right.
we still have a president that he will participate in transition of power, when things go on, but he will be the voice of the people. The president keeps balance. He is nominated by the citizens of the Bahamas and he is ratified by the legislature. Okay. So anyone after that tenure can become the president of the Bahamas. So what you want to do is allow persons that have served their country well. You want them to be rewarded for serving their country. You want to give everyone an opportunity to serve their country. You want senators that's on a cycle recycle basis, like how your system is, that anyone can offer themselves to become a senator. Doesn't have to be appointed by the prime minister because of a favor.
Mm,
Right.
Anyone can become a prime minister. Right now, what you have is persons don't want to get into politics because of fear and victimization and intimidation. And politics is a dirty game. It ought not to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way.
right.
So I feel once we've dismantled this two-party system, more qualified and deserving persons represent themselves as to be a prime minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and let the citizens decide whether or not we want this person. They'll participate in debates. They have to bring their plans to the country. Right now, these two organizations never have to, they don't debate. They feel that they don't have to because the Bahamian people is only going to choose one or the other. But change is coming to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Is it going to be easy? No. It's not only a natural battle, we understand it's also a spiritual battle. And I don't want the Bahamian citizens to feel otherwise. This is an arduous task, but the task has been given to me. The authority has been given to me. And that's why I don't use the word revolution. Revolution is you going to take power from someone.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take power from someone, someone's going to come and take power from you.
Pretty
You
much.
know?
That do
Yes,
make
okay.
sense.
Time and
Yeah,
time
but
again
if but
throughout
but if
history.
that's right. But if you've been given the authority to do something, that's a whole different ball game. And I feel that I've been given authority in this land to bring freedom economically, independently to the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Yes, sir. Kind of to piggyback off what you were saying earlier, we know that when it comes down to politics, um, there are certain individuals and organizations that will go out of their way to try and destroy um, anyone who's coming up and basically putting them out of power. Um, so, with that being said, what are some of the biggest challenges, criticisms, or even setbacks that you have faced since you entered the political arena? Second part of that is, if any, have you, how did you handle them? And have they deterred you or slowed you down in any way?
Let me be very honest with you. You want me to be honest with you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I don't pay any credence to them. Doesn't faze me. It's like waters off a duck's back. I don't engage. I don't engage them. I do expect, um, as we go on towards May 2022, that some mud will be slung at me and slung at my candidates, the KGM, but doesn't matter. We are focused. We have the solutions for the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and that's what we will focus on. If they had solutions, they wouldn't have to sling any mud.
So right about that.
Between the two major parties, every single year it's the same thing. They're trying to determine which one is more corrupt than the other. That's the conversation. Who was corrupt when they were in? Who was corrupt when they, and that's we don't engage these conversations. Let them two fight against one another, but who's more corrupt? We seek to make sure that none of them ever see the halls of parliament again. What they have done to this country, I term it the biggest deception of a country in modern times. It's higher than treason and borders on treachery. And neither of them have a right to be governing this country. But only the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas can decide that. It is their choice if they want to stay under the system or not. And the only thing I can say to them is you get the government that you deserve. So if you decide you rather stay the way you are, then the next 5 years, don't mourn and don't grumble and don't complain. Just bear it. You know, if you feel that these are the only organizations that can govern this country, there's no other individual that can govern this country. We are not an intelligent people. We have to stay with these two organizations. Then that is your fate. It's as simple as that. There's no gray area. But if you've been mourning all these years, you will continue to mourn, and your cries will become louder and louder and louder and will go unheard because the deafness of these two major organizations to the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is irreversible. It is irreversible. They are deaf to the cries of the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It's a game that they play on us every 5 years. Unconscionable.
Yes, sir.
I definitely hear that. That's like one of those issues that we have in America. You know, a lot of people go silent, and the more silent you are, the more unheard you are. And then when you're crying out, it's like, well, where were you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago? Um, I believe that you do have to participate in order to make change. Um, but again, you have to put the right people in place in order to make that change. So with that, mine, you pretty much answered this question about what your goals are as far as the citizens of the Bahamas. So do you foresee, I mean, you said it's going to be hard. What major hurdles do you see that would stand in the way of accomplishing your goals, given that you become the prime minister?
Um, I I don't see it as difficult as most would see it. Um, Other persons feel that the Bahamas is a two-party system. We term it as red and yellow, PLP and FNM, and that's the way it's going to be. It's not going to change. I am just not of that view.
Mhm.
I I, I just have confidence that change has come to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. There's no apprehension. There's nothing that I don't think of anything else other than that. The challenge that I see is during COVID is for us to get our message out. Once you hear the message, it compels you, it captivates you, it grips you. There will be those that doesn't resonate at all, and that's okay. We don't expect everyone to vote for the KGM. We expect that there's what we term as a base in the Progressive Liberal Party and the FNM government that will not leave, and they feel that it's impenetrable. I beg to differ. Every human being wants to live a good quality of life, them and their families. And I think if that is presented to the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, they can see it, they can touch it, they can feel it, and it's not just the plethora of ideas, but solutions. I think change will come.
Definitely. So, sir, we've held you for quite some time now. Once again, this has been a very educational and informative and uh, interview. Uh, Once again, we thank you for coming on and giving us a little bit of your time. And please know that we wish you the best and your country the best in the future. I believe that your way of thinking is radical because against the whole concept of you're not waiting until you get in government to implement these programs to help your people. That's something that so many different people and countries can take notes from. So again, we fully support that, sir. And please, if there's anything we can do, as far as like in the future, if you want to come back on to the show, we know when it comes down to the wire to help get your message out. Please don't hesitate to give us a call, sir. We would love to have you back on.
It was indeed an honor. And Mr. King, thank you for being a gracious co host. My dear friend Jeffrey, it's an honor. And I, look, I'm a flawed man. I'm a man of many imperfections. But I don't want anything from my country. I don't need anything. I've lived an illustrious life. I've done well for myself. I'm not in the best financially right now. No, but I don't need anything. I'm not going into this to get anything. You
Right.
understand? The resources that Kevin King is bringing to the citizens of the Bahamas, they are mine. Like they have a song, "Go and take your money and run." I could take my money and run and be comfortable. What I do for the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and for generations yet unborn. I don't need anything from my country. I don't need any status. I've had that all my life. So I'm not just trying to enter into the halls of parliament. That is not it's not an ambition of mine. My ambition is to serve, and is to serve with distinction. That when this tongue is silent, they will say, this is a man that gave his all for his country. I've done that in my profession, and now I will do that as the leader of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So having said that, gentlemen, it was indeed an honor for you to invite the Bahamas into your homes, your studio, into your listening audience all over America and around the world. I'd like to say God bless you. May he bless your families, and may the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob be upon you, and may God forever bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you kindly, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. And I want to echo the sentiments of my co-host on Solex. It was a pleasure having you on. It was a pleasure hearing your vision for the Bahamas, and where you've come from, where you've been, where you're going. Look forward to great things for the Bahamas and yourself. Blessings to you, your family, which I regrettably did not ask you about your family, your wife, your children, and stuff like that. But if you care to speak on them before we get up out of here, please do, because we know nothing works without family.
Yeah. I have been privileged to have been married to a young lady for 28 years. Unfortunately, that marriage came to an end. There are many factors why that occurred. I will not go into that. It has nothing to do with the KGM. It's a personal matter. But she's still a very, very dear friend. We have 5 lovely children, 4 boys and a girl. 4 girls and a boy. Um, 2 are in university in Canada right now. One lives in Orlando, and one lives in Arkansas. And my son, he's home between us in Nassau. I've always been a family man. I believe in family. That is the first institution, the first organization that God has instituted. When that family is severed, it has a rippling effect, But there are times, no doubt, that there are irreconcilable differences that occur, and it hurts, and it's painful. But because that has occurred, you do not sit down and weep and mourn and feel that life is over, because nothing just happens.
Right.
No thing just
Yes.
happens.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you can't pick up pieces of your life and remarry again and try again if that is what his will and his desire for you is. When you lost a child, you don't stay there forever. You get up, tie up your boots, and you go and have another child. Shake the dust off your feet and say, I can still live again. Life is not over.
Right.
It's not over until Yahweh Elohim says it's over. So you don't let certain things hold you back. You want to be able to empty yourself, give all that you have to give. But above all things, be at peace with yourself and be at peace with man. Because in the final analysis, only what's done for Christ will last.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Yes.
And only your personal relationship with him really matters. And I just seek to be as happy as I can, just love, just love, just love. And yes, the world needs love. nothing has changed from the beginning of time, that love is still the greatest commandments of them all,
Yes, it
that
is.
It
we love
is.
one another as he loved us. And
Yes,
gentlemen,
sir.
I will say as we say, and we grew up, all of us who grew up in Sunday school, I can say, and I'm glad that I had this opportunity. But for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son,
Son.
that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
Yes,
That's it.
sir.
And with that being said, thank you everyone for joining the King and I Life podcast as we had a very humbling interview with Mr. Dr. Kevin King, candidate for Prime Minister of the Bahamas in 2022. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
We're coming to Patreon, so
Yes, we are.
look out for
Yes,
that.
we are. Yes, we are. If you have any questions, comments, anything, email us KINGANDEYE369@gmail.com. And again, we want to thank Dr. Kevin King for joining us for this interview. Thank you for coming into our house. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and thank you for allowing us to be as gracious as hosts to you as we could have been.
Yes, sir. And
Thank you
I
kindly,
would like to
gentlemen.
say thank you to your team. They were very easy to work with. Everything we asked them for, they sent. So hats off to your team, sir. And again, how can people find out more about you and the organization of the KGM, sir?
Well,
Please get that out.
you can visit kgmbahamas.org. That's our landing page. When you go to that landing page, you'll be able to access all of our various media platforms. So you don't have to go all over the place. Just kgmbahamas.org.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to the King and I Life podcast. And please take this knowledge that this man was so gracious to give us. And please do your research. There's a lot going on in the Bahamas. Get out and vote. Do your thing.
Yes.
Good night
Thank
to
you.
all.
Good
Until
night.
next